Hey guys, it's me again, Future Abby. I wanted to pop in real quick to let you know that this is a long episode. You got two big old theater nerds talking about royalty. To spice this up a little bit, let's play a little game. Every time you hear one of us say episode, you should probably take a shot. And if you don't drink, do push up, pull up, something healthy. Maybe take a lap around. You're either going to be A, super drunk, or B, super tired. Another thing, I tried new technology with this and it worked. It was really cool to use, but sometimes my voice wouldn't pick up. You'll notice there will be some times where I'll have a word missing or like a letter. That's okay, guys. It's not you. It's totally me. On with the episode. Damn it, Rico. Yellow! Welcome to A Moment with Abby. Ding! Today is TV Tuesday, and I have a very special guest. He is the one that I would build forts with while we watch Tombstone over and over and over again our whole lives, basically. And we probably would still do it if we lived near each other. Welcome, Ricky.
Well, thank you for having me across the pond, or in the States, how we call this podcast, the lockdown tapes.
The lockdown tapes of 2020. This is a new technology that I'm using. I'm trying to use Discord, the bots, and there's so much technology all over the place. I'm trying to keep it all together.
Just really quick, we probably would build more forts with the movie Greedy, if I remember that correctly. A little known Michael J. Fox film. I think it was on HBO Max now. Watched it like 5 times.
I've watched Pollyanna on Disney Plus more than anyone in the whole world, probably.
Well, really quick, if I post this on my Facebook, if it goes beyond the two people that pay attention to me, mom and grandma, I'm talking to my sister, Abby, who is with her husband and kids in England the past few years. Yeah, so this is pretty cool, doing this across the pond, as they say.
We've come from a family of talkers. This is just what we do naturally.
Yes.
Our dad's a schmoozer. Our mom's a schmoozer. She argues for a living. I mean, this is just, it's in our blood. And you work with politics.
Yeah, I made a living of talking so far.
And look at me. I made my own podcast with my degree. Yay! All right. We watched the brand new season of The Crown. Season 4 is dedicated, this is how I'm going to view it, to 3 ladies and a mistress. Diana, Margaret Thatcher, the Queen, and then the mistress is Camilla.
Yes, that's how I do it.
In the 80s.
So, really recapping, if you haven't seen this show on Netflix, or you're just starting the 4th season, spoiler alert, stop now, come back to this podcast later. That's what I would suggest.
So many spoilers all over the place.
I would say with The Crown in general, so as any good podcaster would do, because the best podcasts are the ones that talk about shows or movies, that's what I like. This show is actually written for the stage and then turned into a movie, The Queen. And then they're like, oh, this was a hit. Let's make a TV show. And then, of course, Netflix picked it up, and it's by far the most expensive show that they make.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. So they've taken the play and then now just expanded it. So overall, we're being introduced to the current queen, Queen Elizabeth, all the way up to, as of right now, with the 4th season, which is the 80s, which I think is probably the season everybody was waiting for, was the 80s.
With season 4, it's broken up in 10 different episodes. We don't even get out of the 80s. We start in the 80s and we stay in the 80s. If you really love that time in history and the family and the monarchy in this time, this is for you.
Reading a little bit about this show, they weren't sure if they were going to go this far, mainly because Diana is a hot topic still today. But of course, everybody outside of England, this is the season they want to get to because Diana is loved and revered.
Well, she's the world's princess.
I feel horrible for Diana, and the secondary is Charles in this season. Now, the reason I say Charles is the family set up where he couldn't marry Camilla the previous season. He made his love known. Everybody and the brother knew it, but kept Charles away. And then, of course, what do you do with a young person that's told to stay away from someone? They sneak off with them.
Yeah. I think Camilla, from what I read, she did love her husband. Now, he was a pig. I mean, he was out there philandering, and he wasn't faithful to his wife either. But Charles, Camilla, her husband, and Charles' sister Anne, they were like all friends and a little kissing cousins, which is kind of gross.
To go off the last season, I think they portray Camilla as like not that 100% to Charles,
Right.
or I'm not into being 100% hooked up. Maybe it's to him or to the family. But this season really hints at Charles and his sister is deep in this other world, whatever that town is, and the whole town pretty much helps him hook up with Camilla.
So with the first episode, we are introduced to well, Mount Mountain dies. I get it's kind of like the start of this political upheaval that's pretty much all of the 80s for England.
Yeah, and actually, I would so with the IRA, rearing their head against the monarchy. My thing about the show is they only talk about it that episode, and the IRA and their fight against the British system is a big thing throughout the 80s and the
Ongoing.
90s, and they talk about it for one episode. I'm like, this is a big deal in the UK. This isn't like they blow up, one person of the royal family and like, oh, okay, we'll deal with them in 2001. No, just having about one episode was kind of irritating. That's just coming from a poli sci dude.
It was irritating that they weren't focusing on kind of like that part, but we're really here for the Diana show. And two, they could have made the moment where that guy breaks into the Queen's house, a little shorter. Why did he get a whole episode?
First, I had no clue about that. Margaret Thatcher takes over. She's prime minister and starts implementing very conservative ideals. And so, of course, when you go from one system of economics to another, there's some hiccups. So he's just kind of represent all people that lost their jobs and had nowhere to go. So he got fed up and then broke into the palace and literally talked to the queen in her bed.
Bloody.
Yeah, and so he was very cordial and he just talked about his grievances with the system, and that was it. He was arrested, and then he was taken off to apparently he was labeled he had mental health issues.
He's still talking about it to this day, and he's gotten in trouble for like drug dealing, stealing. He's really lived a full life.
Yeah, this episode did not need to be a full episode on this. In my personal opinion, I could kind of care less.
Right.
So I think the point is this guy is supposed to represent the bad side of Margaret Thatcher's policies. So they wanted to highlight that. That's my feeling on this full episode.
The first episode, you have a touch of the IRA. Is that right? IRA?
IRA.
And then you have the second episode. It talks about the Balmoral test, where it shows Margaret Thatcher and her husband, who I love. I love her husband. I love their relationship. They're hilarious. I think that you could tell that they really enjoy each other. It shows her failing. And then it shows Diana being introduced to the family and her just being triumphant.
Yeah. So I like their portrayal of Margaret Thatcher. I think she's now moved on the same pedestal as we consider Ronald Reagan now, England.
Right.
But I love the fact that they showed that she didn't give a crap about what the Queen thought. Frankly, I think she came very close to just saying we don't need a queen.
Yeah.
In the show without ever saying it. Of course, she's full 100% British, so of course I think she likes the setup. But the show slightly tries to portray that she's power hungry.
They try to set up that she is going to be decisive and she's going to go in there and make her decisions. And then, oh, wait a minute. You kind of have the Queen silently like trying to whisper in your ear about stuff.
And there's a lot of episodes where Margaret Thatcher is really the triumph. I think they try to show that she might want to supplant the Queen, which is some visuals, which I think is kind of like, I doubt that. It was funny that the Queen's husband, Prince Philip, seemed to really like Thatcher, I think, at least in the show. He never really went against her, anything.
I really liked Philip in this season, only because I felt like he was more personable. Now, I live here in England. I've seen how he drives, so I have my own personal opinion of him. In this version of Philip, I really enjoyed him because he did discuss being the outsider looking in. He did discuss having to be second fiddle to his wife, the Queen, but I really think he enjoys strong women. And I'm not even sure if he views the Queen as a strong woman. Yes, she's strong, but I think he wants people who kind of have made themselves.
Yeah, so their current portrayal of Philip, I'm trying to remember who the actor's name is.
He's one of my favorites. He's very good.
Oh, Tobias Menzies is his name. He's the current guy, the current version of Philip from last season to this season. They aged him. So if you know Tobias,
Tobias?
Tobias, from Outlander
Yes.
fame.
Oh,
Fame is
he was
into
the worst.
Stars Outlander. So last season they portrayed him as a jerk and a half. I think just cold malice, trying to really show that there's a reason for this setup and you have to play your part. Blah blah blah, which is nice to say from a guy that's almost on the top of the whole system
Right.
and with no responsibility, and he gets to just kind of do what he wants. But this season, I think they played him a little more warmly, probably as a figure. I don't know if this is in real life, a figure that Diana could relate to. At the end of the series, he really talks about being the outsider and understanding a little bit what Diana's going through. But yeah, I think they played him a little warmer this season. I think he was a little bit too cold last season, where he couldn't even like I said, the series is creating reasons why you really shouldn't like him.
I wonder if they had to make him warm because they had to find some redeeming quality of the family. And also, he's pretty much maybe found his spot in this family. Yeah, it only took him like 30 years to figure it out, but maybe he was kind of like, nah, okay, I guess I am just like the male queen of the country.
Yeah. So the whole season at this point is you have Prince Charles, who's played by Josh O'Connor. So I discovered this guy. So this is my hipster moment right here. When I went visit England,
You love him so much.
you introduced me to the show called The Durrells. It's a British show, which now you could go on Amazon Prime. You go watch this series. This is where I discovered this guy. He was cast last season as Prince Charles. I was pretty giddy. Last season he was barely in it though. He had like 2 episodes, I think. And a side note, they already cast a new queen,
Yeah.
Melda Staunton, who, if you remember her from Harry Potter fame.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So with this season, I had no clue Diana was like 18. Well, her and Charles met when she was like 14, but when they got married, she was 18. He was at least 10 years older than her. So clearly there's a big age gap in maturity level.
Episode 3 with fairy tale, and I'm going to use that with quotations, fairy tale, because it is anything but.
Yeah, they use the idea of a fairy tale as for Diana. So the whole point of the show, we're still showing that they're creating reasons of a monarchy still. And they use imagery, illusions, and things of that nature, and it's always like brought up. So this one where Diana they try to paint her as this normal girl, which she isn't really. I think she's connected to a family with some royal blood somewhere in there, because that's how she's allowed to marry Charles. That she's this normal girl that kind of comes out of nowhere, and now she's this fairy tale, and they kind of want to just leave it at that. So everybody's always putting on a brave face with this marriage. So with Prince Charles, who's already at this point annoying as hell about wanting to marry Camilla.
He won't shut up about it.
Yeah, I feel sorry for the guy because his family screwed him on this one, so I get it there. But at the same time, you don't have to be a jerk about it.
Well, also, I did a little research on this as well. There is, because I thought, you know what, this Charles, he is really getting a bad rap. And then I remember time has been very gentle to him and Camilla, because back in the 80s, when even before he got married to Princess Diana, there is recorded evidence. And okay, so you do have to kind of feel bad for him. He could not have a private conversation without it being recorded. So there is recorded evidence of him sweet talking a sweet lady. He wasn't calling Diana, he was calling Camilla.
No. Yeah, so that's why I feel bad for him because he couldn't marry who he wanted. So you can't, like, what were you expecting, right? It's like a teenager. You tell, don't be with this girl or this boy. What do you expect? It's you're pushing them more together. So it's that theory. He like started resenting Diana throughout the series. Now Diana's getting fame. She's kind of playing herself up, and so of course the world is taking this all in, gobbling all this up, which is pissing off Charles, who apparently, per the show, attempted to like her for 5 seconds. But when he realized it wasn't going, well, the attention wasn't going to him, second in line, he gets more resentful. And so he doesn't know how to kind of work with that. He just went all full crybaby over the whole situation.
I thought during this whole time of him throwing a royal prince tantrum, would you turn to glamour and crowds and fame in the absence of your husband's love? And I'm talking about Diana.
Yeah, and so she clearly knew how to work a crowd.
Definitely.
Yeah, and then what made her more famous was that up to her, they were, the royal family seen as this stoic figure, like statues or a painting. She comes around hugging people that have diseases. She's out there shaking hands in the crowd and things like that. So, at least in America or the world is seeing this like, well, this is a different royal. Whoa, she's very personable. She could crack jokes. She could I don't know. I didn't know anything about her like dancing on stage and stuff like that, or how true that is. I imagine it has to be true because if they're gonna put something that public out there,
I did research. It's true.
it is true.
Yes.
So she knew how to. She's clearly the show sets her up as this like theater kid. If that's true, then she has the biggest stage of them all, and so it would kind of make sense. But Charles is this character that is told how to act. Be quiet, you're in the background, just wave and go back to your house. That's how, at least how the show sets him up. That's what you do as a royal. You shake hands, you do your salutes, you don't say a damn thing, then you go home.
You mean she's being personable and a human with other humans?
Yeah, she's being human with other humans is the problem, and that pisses off Charles, who likes attention, who doesn't, and is not getting any of it now. So it's showing him that's the reason he starts running back to Camilla even more.
Makes him feel good, and she's a good time.
Yeah, the whining does get old in this season.
Time has been very generous to Charles, and I really think it's because of his sons and because of the PR that's surrounding Kate and their children. It is also kind of like a testament to like mental health and how families love can like nurture everyone within that family. And if there is no nurturing within that family, then you end up with 4 brats, right? I think that with time, they realized maybe we need to treat our children, thanks to Diana, like they actually have souls, because at some point, and this is mostly from episode 4, the queen realizes, 1, do I have a favorite? And 2, who do I like really?
And her favorite's probably the worst kid of them all. If we take today's more past year or two's news, it's pretty horrible.
Spoiler, she loves her Andrew, who seems to be a bit of a pedophile, which, by the way, there is foreshadowing because he does say he loves this actress who's in a movie about a 16-year-old finding her sexuality. No.
Okay, so last season into this season it really hints that maybe we should let everybody marry who they want. And she brings it up a lot. And so right before Charles and Diana gets married, she really like, hey guys, we should stop doing this whole marrying people off bit. Because no one looks happy here. This series makes a case about how the heck the current kids these days now marry someone totally different.
That's the thing. So when the queen goes through and she's discussing, or not even discussing, like she has to make like appointments with her children's secretaries to get to know them more. And every time she sees her children, the 2 that are married literally hate who they're with. And they are the most miserable out of everyone. And the other 2 who aren't married yet, one of them is
a freaking making.
Freak in the making, yes. And then the other one was just like a brat that's like, can I have my money now? Thank you.
Well, also he's taking revenge on the kids that bully him, so he's if he ever
he's plotting.
If he ever becomes king today, we should be really worried.
We should be. You're kind of watching it, and you're like, wait a minute, is he the one that would? He would be the one that would create a coup.
See, this series actually does highlight that. I had no clue Charles had a sister in real life. I had no clue. I only knew of Andrew only because of recent tabloids, and I don't even know what's the 4th kid's name.
Number 4.
Yeah, I had zero. I thought it was just Charles. I had no clue there were siblings ever involved in this family. This is how much I'm tuned in to the royals here, but I had no clue.
This is coming from someone, me, who loves the royals, and okay, I shouldn't say love. I at the time admired what they were doing.
You're infatuated like a lot of Americans are with this system.
Yeah, but it was because of Diana, and then it was her sons. When she died, I literally cried. I was really upset, but it was because she showed how human they were. And this season reminded me I really did not like Charles at all, or the queen.
Yeah, so like I said, this season is really This whole series does it, but this season's really highlighting how there's just nothing good about this family whatsoever. They're taking these very old traditions, and the world changes. They don't adapt, which I think now they've learning to adapt. Maybe the past 20 years, with William and Kate.
You're right. They need to start adapting. They need to start accepting things that don't go their way. Like children who might have a gene deficiency and might have some medical problems. Let's not hide them away or write them off as dead.
Oh yeah, okay. So this goes back to Elizabeth's parents, I think mother's side, who is still like two uncles away, that had gave birth to girls that had a lot of problems. And so what they did was, after Elizabeth's dad ascends to the throne because his brother abdicates, they hide them. Mind you, these are like cousins 5 times removed. Probably is really no blood connection, but they show the weakness or the very thinness of why we have royalty to begin with. Elizabeth's mom, I think, is the ultimate bad guy. She's the Sith Lord, I think, of this series. Always in the background.
She was kind of like, it's just how we do it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, our lives changed when your father became king. Like, oh, I got that. Like, I got it. But she acted like this big burden just hit the family out of the blue. Don't act like she didn't want it.
So I did a little bit of more research on this as well, because I could not believe there was like 5 family members in this home, which apparently had a little bit of abuse allegations. Also, the oldest of the sisters, I cannot remember her name. Sorry, R.I.P. lady. She was buried without a headstone in like the 2000 something. And then they came back and they said, "Oh, she died. We're gonna get her headstone."
Hey, the queen's mother, I can't remember her name is. Do you know
The Queen Mother.
the queen mother, whatever her name is? She pretty much is the Sith Lord. She tells like Dana will bend to our will and she'll get used to it. Or anytime anyone wants to show emotion, she comes out of nowhere and says, "Don't show emotion. You're the queen or you're royal," or something weird craziness.
So irritated every time they show the 4 women at dinner. It was the Queen Mother,
Her sister.
Margaret or the sister, and then Princess Anne. They like all were having dinner, and I'm like, wait a minute. Diana was literally a part of this family at this time. Where is she at this dinner? Because she's in the
Yeah.
same household.
So the queen's mother was able to marry who she wanted because her husband was second in line, which meant most likely it was never going to happen. So he was allowed to marry almost anybody. She had some royal blood, I imagine, but it seemed like they generally liked each other. So she's talking from a weird stance that no one else in the family has the ability to do. I think even like the series shows that Margaret couldn't even really be with anybody she wanted to be, because she was in this the line of succession somewhere still, just in case. She's just out there like doing the puppet strings, and reminding the queen, "Don't show emotion. How dare you?" So I don't know which episode was it where the queen decided to have an opinion on Margaret Thatcher.
It was the episode that was dedicated to, um, well, let's call them the scapegoat. His name was Michael Shea. Poor Michael Shea. No, I shouldn't say poor Michael Shea. He was released from the shackles of the Queen.
So he's the PR director for the queen at the time in the 80s, and he was also a budding author. The queen decides to have an opinion about Margaret Thatcher's policies, and we're talking about apartheid in South America or South Africa. Sorry, all the 48 commonwealths, the 48 countries still under the thumb of England. These figureheads in each of these countries is supposed to be the figurehead that represents the queen. They don't have any power. They just kind of relay messages to the prime minister and like, hey, you should do this or that and this or that, whatever. But anyways, in this episode, they're talking about putting sanctions on South Africa until apartheid's lifted, and Margaret Thatcher did not want to do it. She's the lone person and the most important person because she's the prime minister of England, to put sanctions to cripple that current government to end apartheid. She didn't want to do it because her reasoning is if you cripple their economy, whoever takes over will have long years ahead of them to rebuild their economy, and they're going to be in desperate straits forever. So the reasoning makes sense. Obviously, just looking at history now, it's a good thing that apartheid ended. At the end of the day, she ends up signing the sanctions to cripple that economy and helped. Yeah, so apparently this whole episode is about them going back and forth so she could sign this piece of paper that had a different word you could possibly think of than the word sanction in it. And that's where this budding author comes in. He makes his biggest contribution of thinking of gets his thesaurus out and finds a different word that everybody could agree upon. And during this time, the queen makes an opinion.
It's a personal. It's almost like a personal attack, and also it's just way out of character for the queen.
Yes, who, if you watch this whole series, it makes a big stance on how you have zero opinion as a royal on politics or how to run this country. That's where the prime minister, her bringing up, and that the show suggests, purposely leaks the opinion out, and that's what tabloids go crazy. And so you have Margaret Thatcher, who's played by the X Files' own Gillian Anderson.
Just love her so much and everything she does. Even the new show called The Fall with Jamie Dornan.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything other than the X Files. So if you want to do a podcast on the X Files, let me know. But I think she plays Margaret Thatcher to a T. At least what you know of her, and of course now these days Margaret Thatcher is way more beloved, and that's what history tends to do that to a lot of people.
Or you forget about, I'm talking to you, Prince Charles, Camilla.
Yeah, I think history usually you got to do something really bad like Hitler for us to still hate you.
Even with some people, that's even suspect.
But she has an opinion, and at the end of the day, they realize that the PR game doesn't bode well for the queen. And the fall guy was this author who was forced to say he accidentally leaked or he made it up for the papers.
Michael Shea is the man, and he took one for the team. But in the end, is he the winner because he ended up making so many like mystery thrillers?
So he writes tons of books.
Yeah.
So he probably made more money doing that than ever working as
But
the PR guy in the Queen's house.
these people dedicate their lives to this family, and then to be tossed aside, that had, I mean, yeah, he made a name for himself and everything, but it's got to sting a little bit to be just tossed. You're like, thank you for your contribution to the
Especially when you're the guy saying that's not a good idea, guys.
he was
We should not do that. It will not bode well for you, Queen.
fine.
And she ignores him, and then of course she ends up losing that battle. But at the end, so they're a very contentious relationship, and she ends up honoring Margaret Thatcher when she ends up we're getting late 80s now.
About the late 80s.
Yeah, and so Margaret Thatcher loses power, but she was in power for 11 years, so that's a pretty long time for any prime minister. It doesn't matter if you're fantastic or you're not. After a handful of years, it's time to move on in any parliamentary system. But I think at the end, when Margaret Thatcher is leaving Downton Street, is that right?
I think it's Downing.
Downing Street, she sees her kind of crying, I guess, apparently now realize, oh crap, she cared about England. Like,
Yes, she did.
and it summons her to the palace to give her an award, which I thought was a nice scene.
That's nice, but I also liked how I liked how the show really showed the difference between the two women. You have the queen during that episode where they're discussing South Africa. You have the queen as a young queen discussing how much she loves the place. It's like her home. And then it shows Margaret Thatcher working, becoming educated, actually putting things to work. And then
Yeah, it took me forever to realize, like, who is that girl we're watching at a university? What's the
why are
point
we
of this?
watching this? And then I was excited because I saw Claire Foy. I'm like, oh my gosh, she came back.
Yes, so yeah, it was nice to see her because
She was my favorite queen so far.
yes, she kind of makes the queen a little bit likable in the first two seasons, especially with Matt Smith, who plays the doctor
You mean
in
the doctor?
Doctor Who, the doctor who really sets the stage about, no, Philip, you're a jerk, actually.
But he was a jerk.
And of course, we learned. I was astonished if this is even true that Margaret Thatcher, if you had a meeting with her in her private residence, she made you dinner.
Or I did see that. I thought it was very interesting that she's like, "Oh, well, we're gonna have a meeting. Now I got to make you a roast."
But Margaret Thatcher has a favorite son who seems to be an idiot. Which is funny because, at the end of the one episode about apartheid, she makes a quip about, or the queen makes a quip about her explorer son, and the Margaret Thatcher's like, "Oh, he's a businessman in Europe and in South Africa."
Conveniently.
If you heard that line, you might connect the two of why she didn't want sanctions because it would ruin
Oh.
his business.
Oh.
How true that is, I don't know, but that's what the show really tries to imply. That's the reason.
Well, he was her favorite.
Yeah, how true that is, I don't know. I don't know.
And here's the thing, I guess I need to kind of note that we understand this is not history. We understand that this is for dramatic effect and that this is for entertainment. But ooh, it's so juicy if you think it's like, it's
Yeah,
based on some truth and expounded upon.
there's enough truth bombs in these things, in these episodes or the series, that you could Google this if you really want to deep dive in their history. You're probably gonna find a lot of this is
Oh,
true. A lot of
I
it,
googled a lot.
a lot of it's a little bit trumped up for dramatic effect. Clearly, so a lot of dialogue. We'll never know what the prime minister and the queen said in their private meetings. We'll never know that.
Well, the director said that he did take creative license for a lot of things. He said, okay, so in the very first episode where Mountbatten sends him a letter right before he dies, yeah, it didn't happen, but you know that there was conversation. So it's just for dramatic effect.
Before he went on the boat to be blown up, he had enough time to write a 10-page
Opus.
in the 5 minutes while his family's waiting in the car, tapping
They
to
were.
leave. They're like, wait a minute, like, no, no, no. I gotta write this letter that's gonna sum up my entire relationship.
But first I need to change my sweater vest.
Yeah, I gotta change your sweater vest, write 10 pages in a letter. Yeah, what's his name? Lord what?
Mountbatten.
Mountbatten. This is the same actor that keeps finding ways to die in
Oh, Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones on the toilet. So
There's so much to unpack in this series. It's so tragic, between the families not really knowing each other, only because once you've married them off, you're kind of like, here's your households, take care of this. But also, they kind of touch on where everybody starts to get help with their mental health. It's not the people that, I mean, maybe everybody needs it, but people ignored Diana's eating disorder and they let her.
yeah, I didn't know she had one.
I knew that only because when I was a little old. Well, I was older than you, and I knew she had an eating disorder from the '90s. She discussed it in her interviews and things. Nobody got her help. I mean, she's always been tiny, but if you're close to somebody and they're the princess of Wales, are you gonna say something? I would say so.
Philip keeps reminding Diana that this isn't about you. This is still about the queen. Kind of have to remember your place, which is how everybody goes about their business, and Diana's just clearly not for it.
So people gravitate towards her naturally because she is well liked, like she's likable, and she has a warmth about her. Even with her seeming shy, she always seemed to have a warmth about her, even when it came to certain interviews and stuff.
And wanted to keep her kids near her too, her kid.
Right, and even I remember when they were growing up, just how touchy she was with her children, not in a weird way, but she was very
like a mom.
yeah, she was just a mom, and you never really got that from anybody. When she was having her problems, Prince Charles, he was having a hard time because he couldn't marry who he wanted. He couldn't, but he was still with her. Let's not pretend. And when she was having problems, she got help, but nobody thought to get help to the one person who was literally begging for it.
I guess the show portrays that we got to ignore her to the point where she submits to the ideals of the family. That's at least what I got out of it. Because, like I said, the queen's mother will just pop out of nowhere and says that you need to treat her like this, the Sith Lord, and she has to treat her like this, and she'll conform to your ways. No, that's not how you treat this person. Philip sees it a little bit. I don't know how warm the relationship was, but that's the show seems that she was becoming somewhat a little bit of a father figure, a little bit to her. Charles just didn't want to deal with her because he just didn't like her.
And I don't think he didn't, it's not that he didn't like her, he resented her, like you said before. He just felt like she represents everything he did not like in people. Maybe he did hate her.
Yeah, and also she didn't know her place.
Yeah.
Like he knew his place, and then her place was to back him up because he's second in line. So when he's out and about in Australia or anywhere in the world, he's supposed to be the focal point, and he was not it. So that's where this whole whining bit starts. A little bit too much. Of course, shows that the relationship she's trying to love him, and he just put zero effort into it. He had like a night of trying to like her, and then that was the end of it.
I think the children represent the two nights that maybe they loved each other.
Yeah, and that was it. You have the one kid because you had to have the next person in line, and then you have the backup kid.
When they said the heir and the spare.
Yeah, which they insinuated with all the kids. Because they talk about the other. You have Charles, then you had a sister, and then it was surprising that the queen had two other kids.
Right. And they touch on it. They said that, you it's almost like you have the two different teams. Philip, he was kind of downgrading his two younger sons. They're like, we got the A team, we got the backups. And
Yeah,
it
the
was the
backup team.
worst speech.
You were not planned at all, but your mother wanted you.
Yeah.
You're lucky I didn't have to take care of you at all. But now I like you because you're an adult and probably can have conversations.
Or you're
So
adults now, I don't have to see you every day.
yeah, but the series also highlights that because of I guess a parliamentary law to pay the family members to do their jobs, which is just to go out and cut ribbons and stuff like that. It only goes down to 6 of them, which I didn't know that. So when the youngest kid, the queen, becomes 21, it pushes Margaret out that she no longer has a job.
And then it turns into, what the hell is your purpose once you've been discarded?
Yeah, well, she never had a purpose to begin with in this entire
She had
series.
very little, and what she did have, she grasped onto, but then resented it. But the moment that she made her peace with it, they're like, we're gonna give it to the one of the weirdos.
Yeah, the other kid just became 21, so you no longer not like okay, she's still getting a paycheck somewhere from the people. She just doesn't have something to do now. That's what this means.
Yeah, like she can't. Like, why are you getting dressed? Just to go to dinner with the queen?
Yeah. So to relate it to like now, if you're paying attention, you have William and Kate, and you had Harry and Meghan, and you have the Queen and her husband. Well, now that Harry moved on or whatever, he no longer has any duties. Now I guess a cousin takes over his duties. Am I right?
Apparently, one of
Like is like Andrew's kid?
one of the daughters. Yeah, one of the daughters is now living in that Frogmore house that they paid for the renovations for.
Yeah.
They're cohabitating in that house. Technically, it's just theirs. I can't remember which daughter it is because Harry's not coming back for a while.
Yeah, well, Harry screwed himself on this deal. But it just depends on if you're on Team Megan or not.
I don't know what's going on. That whole thing is so weird.
Yeah, I think it just depends on she's American, so we sent her over there to destroy the monarchy. She kind of did it. Didn't take it fully down yet. She just took away the air that meant nothing.
You are giving away all the American secrets that from our meeting that all Americans have together.
Yeah. And what's hilarious is because she's married in that family, the money that Harry gets, from the royals, which is actually the taxpayers, he now has to pay American taxes. So we're taxing the royal family. So booyah.
Apparently, he's not getting any money from the British public.
Apparently, it's coming from his dad. So rumor said the dad is footing the bill.
He's got to keep that money because I don't think he's going to be king. I don't think it's going to happen.
No. And I don't think Harry's going to stick around too much longer, being bored in LA. My personal opinion.
I think when you come from a background of, you have a military background, you have a background of purpose, and then he does do the Commonwealth Games. Yes, Commonwealth is still around. And you have all this purpose, and then all of a sudden you become a nursemaid and your wife's secretary, publicist. Your wife's agent. How fulfilling is that going to be? I mean, you were freaking Princess Diana's son. What are you doing?
Yeah, and apparently he was very good at the military, and that was his first love, really. So now you would take that away from him.
Have you seen the video of him running to the chopper when they're like, "We gotta go, we gotta go"?
Yeah, everybody plays that. Everybody
Yes.
plays that. And you're not doing it now. You're at some LA mansion being bored.
I have space on my podcast for you, Harry. I am available.
Yeah, you spill the tea.
I'll even allow Megan. I am a Megan supporter. I understand that it's very controversial in this country, in England, but I really enjoy her.
I think she just thought it was going to be American celebrityism
Maybe.
and not realizing that you're supposed to be, no, you're a quiet celebrity in
Like, shut your
England.
face, lady. You just sit over there in Frogmore Mansion.
Especially when you're really second fiddle to William and Kate.
Yeah.
So clearly So going back to this season, she didn't know her place, and apparently, well, at least what I read, that she wanted to be the next Diana.
I did hear that too, that she wanted to fill a spot, but I think the queen was like, listen, we had one. You see how it ended? Didn't end well.
Well, yeah, that's what the season I think was slightly setting up, is that what we that the royals finally learned their lesson with Charles and how they treated Diana. And then, of course, if we see the next season, whenever that is, go away COVID, we're going to see, this national breakup, and then Diana becoming even more popular, after in the 90s, which is an odd memory that I have because I don't know when she died. I forgot when she died. But I remember,
98?
was it 98? I thought it was like
Mm-hmm.
95.
No.
I remember coming home.
I think it was like 96 or something or 7 was their divorce. So I think 95 was mostly their public breakdown of their marriage.
Yeah, and so I remember coming. We were both came home from the Lancaster Fair over there in California.
That's a deep dive.
We came home, and I think because Dad worked that day. This was like a Saturday, I think, or something of that nature. And Dad told us like, "Oh, Princess Diana just died." The fact that I have this memory is ridiculous.
Well, you were 5. How old were you? You were like
well,
13.
If it was 1998, I was 13. I honestly thought I was like 8.
No.
So I was 13 apparently. So I had that memory that's when she died, and then it was a big, how do you do on the news?
And the internets. I was on the internets that time, and I remember specifically texting my husband, Princess Diana died. Did you see it? And then we were like Yahooing it all over because we didn't really have Google. We were Yahooing all over.
So really, at the end of the day, with this series, I still think, I don't know if this is my favorite season.
Oh, it's my favorite.
Of this show.
It's definitely my favorite.
I think there's way more deep diving on characters on this one.
I think you had to, because we know most about this. We are technically still kind of living it. The people that are in it are still alive. So I think since we know so much about it, and like you said, there is so much research and information out there, then they needed to provide more dynamic, I want to say deep information, but what is it? Like
I do believe current affairs drove this season. Like if all honesty, if Andrew is not in trouble right now, I am not sure we even talk about them. My personal opinion.
No, I think
because they highlight the freakiness right away.
That's very true.
With him, if we didn't have the currents going on, I don't think you would even talk about. Or they might be there, but just more bit players. They really highlight the kids more. I think this season sets up to explain why the queen now allows her grandkids to kind of do what they want. They highlight how to keep the monarchy alive, which is what you see now with more or less the younger guys up front than her. And tell you the truth, I think Charles is more out there now.
With the last couple episodes of this season, we tried to have some sort of like, oh no, the Prince Charles could have died. Aww, but really, I mean,
I didn't realize he was in an avalanche. In all honesty, I guess this was in 1985.
The kids were older.
One said 1985, and I'm like, oh, I'm
I'm
born.
alive.
I know. Now I know what's going on. No, there's an episode where he almost dies with an avalanche, and apparently that kind of really solidifies I'm done with you, Diana, because before I died, or when I thought I was about to die, I thought of Camilla.
Oh, I just wanted to be with Camilla.
But apparently this is also the episode where Diana's like, no, I want to try this again because when I thought you almost died, I thought of you,
Yeah.
So I'm not too sure how real that was. If you on Charles's side, when they're talking to the Queen, Philip calls them both in and says, "Get your act together. You're married." And Charles had this speech written out, ready to go, And Diana puts on her performance about, no, I love you. And Philip is like, see, I'm backing her. Like, Charles, shut up. Go back to work. And that pretty much solidifies that Charles is done. He is done with this marriage. He is done. He's done pretending. It's time to move on.
So there is proof that after the avalanche, he was um, ready for the marriage to end. Because before that, he was already ready for the marriage to end because there was a bunch of public stuff, articles, whatever, with all these people that are protecting him out there and wherever he was living near Camilla. It was coming out more and more because they weren't being secretive about it. The thing is with this whole thing where they talk about, oh, well, Charles did not start having an affair until after his marriage started falling apart. It's not true. I mean, from the very beginning, before the marriage even started, he was already messing with Camilla. He was constantly reaching out to her. Can't remember if it was from an interview or what it was. There is evidence out there that after the avalanche, he almost pretty much went directly to Camilla.
Yeah, and like I said, you had to feel bad for the guy a little bit for 5 seconds. That this was he didn't not want to be with Diana. It just made the family happy. She was a perfect setup. This is also after he was just banned from being married to Camilla, but everybody knew it was happening. The show shows that
Right.
the world knew he was running out to Camilla every day, and then it started to leak that Diana was seeking refuge from other guys, from her like a security detail and
Right.
things of that nature. But the show really makes sure to highlight like this wasn't because she's a tart or anything. It's that she's not getting love from anybody.
No one.
So she had to get love from somebody. The show really puts you on the side of Diana this entire time.
Because we all are. We all were. We
Yeah.
all will be. I wonder if they're going to in the next season discuss how some of Charles' correspondence between him and Camilla. He was discussing wanting to live in her pants. And in England, we all know pants aren't pants.
Trousers?
Pants are chonies.
Oh, see, I don't even know the lingo. Yeah, at this point, if it was like 100 years ago, they could just pretend to be married and do whatever, no one would ever know, and keep it the mirage. But because this is such a public marriage, and I think they are trying to insinuate like this is really the first time that the world is paying attention to these people now,
Yeah.
more so than like in the 40s.
Thing is, you parade a person out there to do a job for you and everything else, and then they explode. They just weren't prepared for her.
Yeah.
This poor girl, she was so young, 20 when she got, okay,
Yeah.
20 when I got married. But I think that when you throw someone out there who is doe-eyed, she appeared to be sweet. I mean, everyone that met her, they thought that she was sweet. And you don't provide them the tools to help like defrag from this whole like world loving you, you're setting them up.
Yeah. I think at the end of this series, like so we end with Philip telling her to mind her place a little bit with a
Yeah.
hint of a threat. Not sure where the show wants to go with that one. I don't think it depends on how you want to play it. It says, if you want to leave this family, it won't end well for you. Line.
Yes.
I'm not too sure because with the conspiracy theories that the royals had her killed off.
Yeah.
Or is it just can you take it as well? Because we control the media, we'll make sure it's about us and not you.
So
I don't know.
it could be taken as in you either figure out what your role is and stick to that, as in the quiet role. I mean, we'll provide you the notes, Diana, or you can just be, loud or whatever. But there's consequences. I think it was more of like a, hey, there's consequences, and he never thought about death, right?
Yeah, that's how I was taking it. But because we know the future,
Right. So, well, thank you so much for being on my podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. It was quite an honor to be on this podcast.
This I knew would be fun to talk about with you because one, you were watching it. You watched, I think, before I did, but you have an opinion of somebody who just didn't really know. You were born, like you said, in 1985, and you didn't really know what was going on. And I come from a place where I remember a lot of this stuff. I was born in 81, and I have an emotional connection to Diana, and and let me tell you, this series brought up a lot of repressed emotions about the Queen and Charles and Camilla that I'm able to provide a little bit of, hey, this is how I felt at the time.
Yeah, I like watching popular shows. Or I don't know. When I started watching The Crown, the first season, I don't know. I don't think it was that popular yet, but Netflix has some good shows. But I like to be in pop culture stuff and everything. If you ever want to talk about Star Wars,
No,
goodness gracious, have 5 hours
no.
just to begin. Ready for that? The Mandalorian.
Now let me tell you, I love
So
a Star Wars.
some hints.
I love all like baby Yoda. He's adorable, but I don't. I'm not ready to deep dive into that one. I'd rather talk about royals. I talk about my crushes. I love you, Robert Downey Jr. And I like to talk about like stupid stuff. So, Star Wars. It's way too meta for me at some points.
So if you want to watch something that's not at all like The Crown, but it has this hint of flair, time period piece that's on Netflix right now, people need to watch The Queen's Gambit.
Yes, I did talk about that in my first episode. I'm sorry. Do you even listen to this podcast?
Oh yeah, it just depends on the day. So if you want a relatable, nothing's relatable, but if you want a show
Nothing's
that's it's
relatable.
in the same wheelhouse of some sorts.
If you have a drug addiction
If
and
you're
you
good at
love and you're
chess, you are
and
on
you're an orphan.
pills, you drink a lot. Who doesn't drink a lot? And yeah, you're an
Hey
orphan.
2020.
Uh, then yeah, that show's for you. But actually, that show has some good music behind it.
Great music. And let me tell you, I'm still reading like people's opinions on that show.
I don't know.
And
Is that based off a real anything, or is this totally just
no,
made up?
it's very made up. It's a
Okay.
book. It's a book written by this person. Can't remember. I if you go to
Oh,
my
it's based off a book.
podcast,
It's based off a
yes,
book, huh?
yes, but
See,
all those
I'm working to have people go back to your old episodes.
Oh, that's what you're doing. So
Right.
a lot of those chess moves and things are all real, of course, and
Yeah.
the people that are in there are based on true chess masters.
The big guy that everybody wants to take down is a Soviet chess player, and I know that's based off an actual real person.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't think it was American. It was some other person that took the main guy in the '60s down. And so I know they use a little bit of that, but I didn't know if this was like was this based off a book or is this just literally someone wrote a script?
No, based off of a book, and I just read an
Hmm.
article yesterday where they were discussing why she wore that white outfit at the end of the episode because it represents the queen, the chess piece. Didn't
Really?
even think about it.
Oh, we're in the white jacket.
And the white cap.
Yeah. Really?
I didn't make the connection either.
That's yeah, that's too deep for me.
That's
I
why
don't
I'm still
know, but
reading about it, and I will continue to Google more about The Crown well into next year, the year after, until the next season comes out.
yeah, they've casted everybody. So the current cast we have now will not be there. I imagine we'll probably get a new Charles. We already have a new Diana, a new Queen. What's her name for Harry Potter? So if you're just not aware of this show, every 2 seasons you get a new cast because we're going through history here. Now we're reaching probably the last season, which I guess we're gonna end in the '90s and be done with it because it is getting a
It needs.
little
I
thin,
thought,
little thin now.
yeah, I thought it would have ended this season because I felt like there was enough information. Like I said, the guy hanging out in Queen's
So
bed,
originally it was originally apparently it was supposed to end. They weren't even supposed to get to Diana.
right?
But I think out of the sheer popularity of the show, they went into it. But then I was reading that they were going to stop here and that's it. But now they already casted the '90s version of everybody. So when I heard that the next season's supposed to be the last season, but who knows when they're going to actually film it?
There's a little bit of gossip that Harry was like, "I will sign this contract if you don't include me in the next one."
I would not doubt that whatsoever.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on my podcast and getting deep, talking about the Queen, Diana, Thatcher, and Camilla, and also trying to redeem Prince Charles a little bit,
I tried my damnedest to redeem his qualities a little bit.
only because you like the actor.
Oh yes, Josh O'Connor. I'm gonna watch anything
Call
you're
me.
in. Yeah. Oh, and also he was in Emma, the newest version of Emma, which was what an ending. I'm a big fan of these people. I tell you, I like good actors, and I'll follow them to different things. I like good acting. That's the theater side of me.
Yeah,
Yep.
drama nerds. Yeah, I'm a drama nerd too. All right. Thank you so much for being on my podcast. And, I love technology. You're in Tejas. I'm here in the UK.
Yeah, if you're gonna trim this down a lot because if this is just meant to fold your socks, you're folding, you're folding your clothes, you're folding your bed sheets. If you need to vacuum, if you need to vacuum and dust and clean your bathroom,
If you need to move your whole house, we got the podcast for you.
this is the podcast for you right here. This could take us all the way to the top. So number one on the Apple Podcast. This is the episode's gonna do it for you.
Hey, it's Future Abby again. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you guys hanging out and listening to this retrospect of season 4 of The Crown. This is really a gift to my mom. Our mom is our biggest fan, and that's always how it's been our whole life. And I just wanted to say, hello, Mom. I love you. I hope you have a very safe ride home from your clinic. All right, guys. No good of the day, because you're either really drunk or really tired. So go take a nap either way. Okay, guys. Bye. Bye.